Hey y'all, this is Brett, and today I want to talk about why I think that vegans, vegetarians, and raw foodists, some of them, give up on their diets and go back to eating foods that they didn't really want to eat. And there are a lot of different reasons. They may get deficient in some nutrients because they're not eating very high quality foods. They're not eating a very broad range of foods because maybe they're trying to accomplish too narrow of a range of foods. They're trying to eat maybe just fruits and vegetables and not eating any beans, nuts, or seeds. And they may not be digesting really well because they're trying to eat all raw food, or maybe because their bodies are trying to cleanse a whole lot of toxicity out of their bodies, and it's hard to rebuild and cleanse at the same time. So you have to do this in cycles. And they don't realize that their bodies have deep deposits of toxicity in them that may not come out for years, won't come out for years and years in the future. And they have disillusions about how long it's going to take them to get to be healthy. And they'll see some initial results, some initial excellent results, but then say in 6 months or a year or even 5 or 10 years down the road, they start to get these symptoms because of these different reasons that I'm talking about. The toxins coming out from hard deposits in their bodies that they didn't know were there. Well, they are. And believe me, I've been doing this long enough to know. And when you have thoughts about things that happened to you 20 or 30 years ago and you don't know where those thoughts came from, believe me, those are deposits from cellular memory stuck in your body that got back into your bloodstream and reached your brain. And people have lifestyle issues to deal with as well. And if you don't change to be able to have a whole lot of extra time to deal with these cleansing crises, then you're not going to be able to do that, and you're going to want to go back to give yourself relief. And, it's okay in some instances for people to go back to eating meat or whatever so that they can get through the night, as John Lennon sang. And so people may need to go through these cycles of falling off the wagon and going back to eating meat or dairy or some processed foods, who knows? And that will give them some relief, and they may even look really, really good for a while and just feel fantastic because they've stopped all of the cleansing processes that they were so deeply into before. And then given themselves relief, and because they'd done so much cleansing and now they completely stopped their cleansing, now they look a whole lot better, like this girl here. Her skin looks vibrant, And yes, it's also possible that maybe they don't have a blood type that will enable them to become vegan or vegetarian. I do give some credit to that book, Eat Right for Your Type, because I think that there is some legitimacy to it. There has to be. And at the same time, there are vegans out there that are blood type O's. Successful vegans that are healthy and have been that way for a long time. So it's not in stone, it's not set in stone that the blood type diet is the for sure deal. There are so many other factors, like food combining, for instance, is a huge deal. And the chemicals that you may have in your body. How many drugs did you take? How many mercury fillings did you have in your mouth, and do you still have those in your mouth? Are you having to work a whole lot of hours still and not able to really take care of yourself in the way that you need to? Have you tested your blood for nutrients, a nutrient analysis test? And do you know that all of your levels are still up there? Because if they're not, then you very well may, you will almost surely have deficiencies that are causing you to start to have cravings for meat that has maybe B12 in it that you need. And so, there's also a spiritual aspect here. And if you're not a person that has a spiritual ability to be vegan, you have to care about animals. There are people that just don't care that much about animals, because that's another really important thing in regards to becoming somebody that doesn't eat them. Right? There are people that work for places like PETA, for instance, that they would rather die. I mean, seriously, they would rather die. They don't care about the symptoms. They would rather die than eat their best friends. And some of them work on farms that are taking care of animals that were rescued, and there's no way in hell that they would ever eat them. They love them. It's like would you eat your own mother? There are people that love animals more than their own family members. And so, it's a matter of commitment. And another thing is that we are moving towards this progression of not eating animals and beyond. There are more levels above that. And anybody that doesn't think that human beings are eventually, maybe in 100, maybe in 1,000, maybe in 10,000 years, moving and going to get to be totally vegan or vegetarian, those people don't have an understanding for evolution, and they don't have real insight. And so whether you make it now or in 10 years or in 10 lifetimes, it doesn't really matter. It's a matter of you taking it your own speed and eventually getting there, and you will, whether you like it or not. If you're not ready to come back to a life, then creation won't send you back to another mortal life. You'll just stay in the ethers until you're ready. And, because it takes stamina. It really does take a deep desire and wanting to achieve things like becoming vegan, or becoming kinder and gentler, or having a deep connection to creation. You have to really want that. Just like anything else that you've learned in life, that you really had to want it bad to get it. And when you did and you got it, then you knew because you'd experienced it. So that's the deal. That's the deal. I've quit these things so many times. Different things. Smoking at first. That was my first real challenge. Quitting smoking. It took me a couple of years. I fell off the wagon many, many, many times before I finally achieved it. I actually went back to smoking organic tobacco 13 years after I'd quit, because I needed that drug for 6 months. And then I quit it again, and now it's been another 8 years or something. Okay? So yes, sometimes people will have to go back to eating meat, and they may just stay on it for the rest of this particular life because they need it for whatever reason. And others will completely get off it and become raw foodists like Dara Dubonnet within a very short period of time. And those that can do that can do it for a lot of different reasons, as stated in many of my previous videos. Like, they didn't have a very toxic body, they grew up on fruits and vegetables, and so they grew up very accustomed. When kids are learning things at a young age, that is that's the time for them to get stuff ingrained into their souls, into their beings, into their minds, to be able to accomplish things as adults. And so, if you ate a lot of fruits and vegetables, if you had earthy, hippie parents, if you grew up in the country where the air and the water was really clean, but if you're young and you never had a job where you were exposed to a lot of toxicity, these are all huge, huge things as to whether or not you'll be able to be a vegan or not. Did your ancestors eat a lot of meat? You know, were you born with a genetic predisposition to be able to become vegan? Not just from your blood type, but also possibly, you know, your genetics. You know, because your ancestors only ate meat maybe once a week or twice a week, you know. Mine weren't. My grandpa owned a grocery store and could eat meat with every meal. They could have eaten meat solely, and that's it, just meat. And you know, if your ancestors were wealthy, you know, my ancestors were entrepreneurs, and they had money and the ability to buy pretty much whatever they wanted, you know. They weren't millionaires, but they were well off people. On my dad's side, at least. Not so much on my mom's side. And so, all of these things are factors that you have to take into account. It's just like, you know, what part of the world were your ancestors from, and what kinds of foods did they eat, and that will show you the blueprint for what you possibly can eat, and what you can't as well. Because if you're from a northern hemisphere, like me, then tropical foods probably aren't going to do so well for a blonde person. Or is it gray? And that's another thing, no matter what, you can basically expect that in this world, nobody's going to live to be beyond 120 years old. And although many people think that people are increasing their lifespans, their lifespan abilities at this time, well, guess what? That's going to change, and it's going to actually go down. It possibly already is, you know, because the more people fill themselves with prescription drugs, you know, that's just a quick fix. That eventually is going to cause long-term damage and radically reduce the population of the so-called progressive countries like the United States, where half the population is on prescription drugs. That's going to radically decrease lifespans of people. So I think that's all I want to say, and I hope you got a lot out of this, because that's what I do them for.